Aloha, everybody. Welcome back to Ho'oi Kaika. This gentleman that I'm talking story with today, I've known him for a while. We worked together at another company. He was in operations, and I was working in L&D at that time in HR. And we just, from the first day I met him in the training session and orientation, we just got along really, really well. And ever since then, I've been running into him, here and there. We're friends on Facebook, finding out we got all these different mutual friends, that train with him and everything. But his story is something that's really, really powerful. And I wanted to get him on the show. And I'm so glad he was willing to do this. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you guys to a hardworking man, a supervisor in operations, and also a professional boxer. This guy got the whole gamut, man. I want to introduce you to Glenn Nebres, brother. If you can please go ahead and introduce yourself to the crew. Mahalo.
How's it? My name is Glenn Nebres, and I'm not a pro boxer, but I was a boxer all my life, and I'm a coach nowadays. And then, I've had a pretty good time doing it. But to be honest, like the way I fell into coaching, it wasn't like I guess a normal way that people could get into coaching, So at first, when I first, to be honest, I was a fighter. I wasn't fighting anymore. I was actually just trying to change my life. I used to get arrested all the time. And then I guess the kids around the neighborhood, they kind of always came around. It started off with Jamal, you know what I mean? But sorry, my wife is right here. Yeah, I used to train kids. Here, why don't you ask me some questions and then lead me through this step?
Okay, yeah, cool, but whatever, man. You talked about your background a little bit. So if you could tell a little bit about what your ethnicity is, like all your cultural background, your ethnicities first.
I'm Hawaiian, Filipino, Chinese, Japanese, English, German, and Spanish. So in Hawaii, they call us the poi dog, mixed breed.
That's an exotic mix, brother.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in boxing? How did that come about?
Okay, I used to watch a lot of kung fu movies when I was younger. Yeah. So I always kind of wanted to be Bruce Lee, but back then we used to call kung fu movies, we used to call them karate movies. So that I never knew that there was a difference between kung fu and karate. So I got into karate thinking that it was going to be like kung fu. And then my dad, he was a boxer, so he was like, he always used to talk crap about karate, like, when karate guys are on the street, you can't even tell they take karate like that and all this kind of stuff. So he ended up forcing me into boxing. And I didn't really like it because karate was nice. Like, they didn't hit us. We didn't hit each other real hard and stuff like that. And then we had like the nice uniforms. We didn't have to wear these shorts and stuff like that, right? And so like it was like really cool. So like when I first went into boxing, I really hated it actually. But they punch you real hard and you gotta wear these little shorts. It was fun.
It probably came in handy though, because you grew up in Kalihi, right? You grew up in Kalihi.
Yeah, grew up in Ever Beach. I grew up there. When I first started school, I was in the mainland. I was in Kentucky. And then before that, we was in Alabama. My dad was in the military. We moved all over the place. And that was kind of hard on me too, because every time I made friends, we'd have to start all over again. And then in the mainland at the time, this was like the early 80s and stuff, and 90s, it was still pretty racist out there. And then so when I went out there, like, they would call me like spit and wetback and even the N-word and all of that. I'm not even black, Mexican, or any of that. but yeah, that's how it went. And then when I came back to Hawaii, because I had such a strong Southern accent, that they used to call me a howdy. Yeah. And at the time, there was this movie. I didn't know what howdy meant. There was a movie at the time called The Howling, a werewolf movie. I was a kid. I don't know if you remember. It was like an old movie, a werewolf movie called The Howling. So when they called me a howdy, I thought they were saying that I looked like a werewolf, and I have like this jawline. So I'm like, I look at myself every day in the mirror and think, I guess I do look like a werewolf. So it was hard. So in the end, though, I did get into quite a bit of fights, and then and I lost quite a bit of fights back then. So yeah, in the end, it did help me out a lot to know how to fight, and I really think that in a way it was good and bad because all of my self-esteem came from knowing how to fight. So like whenever I felt insecure, I would just want to fight, you know. And it made me kind of like bad in that way, but it was good for me in a way that I did have a source of confidence and a source of like pride. Because other than fighting, I really had nothing else at the time. I needed a lot of more self-development.
Yeah, I'm sure not only your self-esteem, but your confidence, your grit, you know, knowing that you can overcome challenges or whatnot. And a story I always hear from guys that either practice martial arts or do some kind of boxing or any kind of self-defense. I always hear from them that wherever they go, they always feel like they can take care of themselves. And
Yeah, yeah.
I notice all my friends like you that can fight, they're very humble, they're very nice because they don't have to put up that front, you know, of toughness.
Yeah.
Sometimes guys, if they cannot, they're a little bit insecure, and so they got to put that tough attitude out there, like, oh, I can beat up everybody. But you guys don't have to do that.
Yeah. You have to understand, you know, if you cannot fight them, you got to keep them back, you know. But yeah, like when you, after so long, when you're used to fighting, it's more like, hey, if you want to fight, then we can fight, you know. Like so, there's not that that added guard of keeping them back. It's like yeah. But even now that I'm older, though, to be honest, I'm afraid to fight again. You know, like I know I can handle myself and all that, but there's always that chance you get hurt, and I'm just not willing to get hurt anymore. You know, and then I mean, I'm willing if the time comes, and when the time does come, I always react. But nowadays, I do try everything in my might to avoid it. So, and I realize there's a power in humility too. You know, like a lot of people feel like they're like when they feel like when they turn the other cheek, they make themselves very vulnerable. But it has a power. Like, there's a respect. There's a power in the respect that you get from being humble. So it is very rewarding too. It's not just a humiliating experience to humble yourself. You know, like, and I don't recommend to be humiliated, but to be humble, I highly recommend because it wins a lot of respect. And if you are in the chase for power, then humble is the way to go because humble gives you a certain level of power and respect. You know, it makes people react to you the right way. So I do highly recommend to always think of others, to always try to be empathetic, not because you know some people they don't deserve your respect, and I understand that, but to give the respect, it's a powerful thing. You know, when you give people respect, even if that person doesn't give you respect back, just to have that type of character, it wins a lot of power, respect from others. So I do recommend that because in the end, right, like you want your word to be respected. You want to have weight. You want to have your word mean something. So I highly recommend to not see. I think that people get confused when I say be humble because when I say be humble, I don't mean like to bow and to like be less than others or anything like that. It's just to have a more a grounded, realistic look at yourself and know that us as people are not different than other people. You know, we're all the same, and to know that you have the weaknesses that you see in others. You know that is a powerful thing to have. You have that awareness, but it actually affects others in a positive way. That's what I mean by humble. I don't know if I'm being confusing right now. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, no. I totally make sense. I know what you mean because sometimes I know sometimes, especially in Hawaii, I think when we think about being humble, sometimes we think we gotta lower ourselves
Yeah.
below other people in order to, you know, when we interact with them. But that's not what we should do. You know, just more be open to learning. Remember that
Yeah.
those people are going through stuff just like you. You know, see it more as like, hey, we equals. So remember, everybody's going through something rather than say, oh, I'm lesser than. Yeah, that's kind of what
Yes,
you
yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're equal, more so than less than. It's
Yeah.
like even though you might be better at fighting than this guy is better at other things than you, and there's a lot you can learn from this guy. And
Yeah.
like even though like, you might be the teacher and this might be the student, there's still a lot you could learn from this guy. You know, like and then to have this awareness is powerful. You know, it gives you a lot of options, a lot of um resources that you don't realize you actually have in other people, and then and to be able to use these resources is a power, you know, to be able to use people for their strengths and not always think that you have the answer,
Oh, I
you
like
know.
that. No, I like that, especially now with how everybody there's so much division now, right, in our society. You know, everything you see in social media and the news is always some uh mantra or something to cause division amongst us. And so yeah, having that attitude you just said, super important, man, especially nowadays. Um
I think that division, we shouldn't have a division because the difference is what makes us better as a group, you know, right? Like you might think, oh, this guy, I would never do it like that, but that's why he's going to have ideas that you would never have, right? So I love that differences. I love differences. I love people that don't agree with me,
yeah.
because then together we can do great things.
See, and that's why you got promoted, my man. That's why you're in that leadership position, because to have that kind of mindset, that's how leaders should be, right? Which kind of a nice segue too. If you don't mind talking about like your educational background and like your careers, like your work experience, if you don't mind sharing that too.
Okay, so actually, my education, I only went up to the eighth grade, and then during my youth, like I started getting arrested when I was about 12 years old, and then I started running away, and then I actually stopped boxing at around 13 or 14 years old, 15 years old, because I started doing drugs. I was running away. I had a bad childhood at home. So most of my education really was after I met my wife. I met my wife, and then it was all self education, really. Like not really self education, but I would join classes, and I would like I actually I joined this thing called Amway. If you ever heard of it, like this pyramid business type of deal. But one thing about Amway, one thing was good about the leader that I had in Amway is he taught me that if I want to sell things, and this is one thing that's nuts. Is like it wasn't even like a deep motivation. All I wanted to do was be able to sell a lot of stuff and get rich. It wasn't like I wanted to be a better person, but the guy that was leading me said that people can smell you. You know, like you cannot fake it. You cannot act. People, no matter how you try to act, people can smell right through it. And he taught me this term that I live by till this day, where I have to cure the core. Because if it's not real inside here, it will not come out outside here, you know. So he made me join these groups. Like he had a church group called the Promise Keepers. And then he used to make me come with him. And then they taught me to be honest, I didn't realize I was like that. Like they showed me like how much I was being dishonest with my wife, with myself, you know, like always making excuses to, you know, if I want to do things, I do it and then I make excuses. And then if I don't want to do it, I just don't do it and then I make excuses. And then I believe these are reasons, but it became clear to me that this was true what they were saying, that I was inventing my reasons after I do things. So that changed my life. Amway changed my life. Going to these meetings and then talking to them all the time about um, what I could do to do better. You know, like what was wrong with me, not wrong with me, but where I had opportunity to grow. And then that changed my life. It made me much more willing to accept where I go wrong. And then that willingness was basically what forced me on this journey of learning. And then it wasn't really like an education. I did go into afterwards. I through my job, I got this scholarship to go to college, and then I did sociology, and I got my GED too. So, and then even when I was in school, I was part of the gifted and talented program. So when I was about my third time in the 8th grade, they promoted me to ninth grade because they said that if I attend 1 month of high school, I could take my GED without having to take a class. And they believed that I could pass the GED because I was such a smart kid. I had like 129 IQ, which was like borderline right there. Um, so they believed that I could do it. But first day of school, big rumble, got into a huge fight, got expelled. Then that was it. So I ended up having to take the class, but I still ended up getting the GED. And then I could go on to college and then learn sociology. And then sociology is also what helped me to become aware, like of why I do things, because in the beginning it felt like there was no self-control. I just didn't know why I did things. I mean, I knew why, like I knew like I wanted to do that, but I don't know why I kind of stop myself. So that's basically my education. Like I have no real education. It was more like the school of hard knocks, getting arrested all the time, trying not to get arrested all the time, and like getting it, almost losing my wife how many times and trying not to lose my wife, like this was my education.
Yeah, that's informal school of hard knocks life experience, man. I mean, you cannot exchange that for other stuff, right? It's so true. The stuff that you've gone through, I can't even imagine. You learn so much. You probably had to learn way faster because of all the challenges you were going through.
At the time when I got my wife, with boyfriend girlfriend at the time, by the time when I got her pregnant, we were 16 years old, and then I was actually living in an abandoned house up the street from her. So like, yeah, it was pretty rough. And then I tried my best, but I would always fail. And then we went homeless, and then that's when I decided like I cannot make any excuses anymore. And that's when I started trying anything. I started to just try anything, and then take any job and just do anything that I could. And but my criminal mindset was hard to overcome. So I was always like trying to sell on the side. Always, I stopped stealing already because my wife, she just thought that was just disgusting. you know? So I stopped stealing. I was still lying a lot back then. So that was causing a lot of problems. So nowadays, that's another thing I learned throughout life is that if you're going to have a habit, you should have a habit of telling the truth. Like if you're going to accidentally squeal on yourself, it's going to be less of a result than if you're known as a liar. Yeah. So nowadays, I just try to tell the truth. I sometimes I still panic and lie, but I'll catch myself and be like, nah, 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 I'm lying. I'll tell you straight, like, nah, I don't know why I just lied to you. I kind of panicked. You know what I mean?
That's funny, man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're being honest with me.
No, like nowadays, even though I still when I talk to my students or I talk to my close relatives, I always tell them straight, like, deep underneath, I am a liar. And they'll be like, no, you're not a liar. You never lied to me. I go, yeah, I never lied to you. But to be honest, whenever something hurts my feelings and I get defensive, the first thing hits my head is a lie. It's just that I catch it and then I don't say that. You know? But to be honest, till this day, I still get that reaction to lie. The first thing is to defend myself. I'm not at fault. That's not me. And then I know, like, as soon as I feel that way, I kind of know already that's a telltale sign that it is my fault. That's usually what that means.
Right.
Like, yeah, so like that's basically the source of my education, I think, is just getting through that denial. And then after that, the ability to learn just opened up, like, and then I became, that's when I became the man I am today, is being able to accept the fact that I'm a human being, like, as much as like I see how other people look at me, I am not who they think I am, like whether it's good or bad. I'm not the ultimate warrior, and I'm not some bad guy, you know, and I'm not a great guy. I'm just a guy. And then knowing that really like set me free and made me an honest person. You know what I mean?
bro.
But it
That
hurt sometimes.
dude, that's deep, man. That self-awareness, all the stuff you talked about, having awareness of about who you are and keeping it real. That's something that we all gotta strive for, man. It's so helpful. Another thing you talked about, I like that you talked about your IQ, because there's nothing I like better than when people break stereotypes. Because quite frankly, a lot of people don't realize that to be a boxer, you got to be smart, you got to be intelligent. A lot of people think that, oh, this is brute, muscle guys are going, oh, I'm gonna beat you up or whatever. Like, there's the whole science behind it. I mean, I never boxed myself, but I have friends that do, and I admire guys that are pugilists, like are fighters and whatnot. But to have that quick reflex of knowing if this guy going jab, I gotta move here and go this way, change my angles and all this kind of stuff. There's a deep science behind it. So I'm so glad you said that you have a high IQ and you won boxer. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you broke that, bro.
And I think that it even goes further than that, right? Because like a lot of people, of course, like boxing is a chess match, but I even think that you have to be smart even to do like weightlifting, right? Because then the body is controlled by the mind, and then to actually put your body under so much torture purposely, and to force yourself through those walls, uh, uh, these limits, right? That you think you're not strong enough, but you are strong enough. You're just not strong enough, right? So like even when it comes to like repetitious type exercises like running or riding the bike, or like even like strength exercises like gritting through like football or lifting weights or something like that, right? You need a strong mind. Like so, like if you want to do something good for your body, what I would suggest is you do something good for your mind. And then another thing too, right? We don't realize is that the mind is not a figment of our imagination. It's a part of a physical organ. In order to have a strong mind, you got to do something good for your body, right? So this is all hand in hand. Like if you want to get smarter, exercise. And then if you want to get better at your exercising, think.
Amen, bro. No, that whole mindset you just said about, because I enjoy weightlifting. That's my thing.
Uh-huh.
So that whole mindset about pushing through those walls, like you just said, I love that, because sometimes when I have a stressful day or a week and I gotta go relieve that stress, that's where I go. That's my therapy. I go hit the
Yeah.
weights, and then I put that, go on a squat rack, I put the weight on my shoulders, and I just imagine myself doing that one more rep or that one more set, or putting that one more plate on there, to just push through. So the next time I go through stress, I can handle more. It's definitely
Yeah.
a mind thing, like you just said, bro, for real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's
Um,
all connected. Like, is it physical or is it mental? It's both.
Amen,
Like
bro.
they say like it's 90% mental, but I would beg to differ because if I broke down that 10% physical, you cannot do it. Right? Like if your body don't work, you cannot do it. No matter how much your mind thinks you can do it. Right? And then also on the other hand, even if your body cannot do it, if you don't have the mind strong enough to push through those walls and those obstacles, your body will not do it because your body listens to the mind. So I always try to suffer. Like I have fun doing things that test me. I love challenge. And of course, there are like sometimes I feel overwhelmed and I catch myself backing off, but I try to push myself through that. Like don't be afraid, but I get afraid just like anybody else. I get scared. I hold back. I get nervous. My hands start sweating. And then my wife, she always tells me like, she doesn't see it that I get afraid, but if you could see into my head, oh, I'm afraid, man. Ooh, it's strong too. Like it's just that I'm just so used to pushing forward. The training, you just the training doesn't only do for it doesn't only affect you in your sport, right? Like that same training that you do for like weightlifting is pervasive in all your behaviors. When stuff get rough, man, you're gonna push through. When shit gets sore, you're used to that, right? This is no stranger to you. You know, when you go through hell, it's no stranger to you because you eat lunch there every day on purpose.
Oh, bro, I'm getting all psyched, bro. I like go hit the weights right now after talking to you. Woo! You fired up.